Good evening, everybody. My name is Hilton Cole, and I'm the director of Guide Right for the Dulles-Leesburg Alumni Chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi. I wanted to thank everybody who was able to attend this webinar where we'll talk about the importance of STEM and the careers that all students in middle and high school should be considering as we accelerate towards a digital future. The coronavirus in 2020 has dynamically changed the way a lot of us operate in our day-to-day lives, with most parts of life shifting from on-person to digital. These transformations are widespread. They can be felt across every area of our life, from our schooling system to our healthcare, to our government, as well as several industries in the private sector, such as transportation, manufacturing, and retail. We hope that by the end of today's presentation that you all leave here today with a little bit more knowledge about our changing world, careers that are becoming high demand, as well as having an innovative mindset and curious heart in order to use STEM to solve the problems of today and tomorrow. We once again appreciate our live audience here as well as our panelists that were able to join us on the call today. But this video is going to be recorded and put on YouTube. So if you are checking out our Kappa League TV YouTube channel or our digital assets for Guide Ride or our Endeavor to Dream website, we really do appreciate you for coming and watching this recorded content as well. We hope that you're able to take something away with it as well, in addition to passing it along to one more person. With that being said, I'll go ahead and share today's agenda. So we did just finish the welcome. We talked about the purpose. In a few minutes, I'm going to introduce the panelists and just give them an opportunity to speak a little bit about themselves. We'll jump into, we have three amazing panelists that have presentations to give to you guys today. We'll give you a parting chat. We'll jump into open discussion segment where we'll do rapid fire rounds of questioning to all of our panelists that are here. And then we'll close the session with a parting challenge and then close our ceremony out. We really do appreciate everyone for joining. And without further ado, I'll stop sharing my screen and then we can introduce our three panelists. So I want to give the floor first to Mr. Charles Sterling II. Mr. Sterling, you there?
Yes, sir, brother. I'm here.
Awesome. So if you just give a little bit about yourself, your background, a fun fact about you, and just a little sneak peek on what you'll be presenting today.
Absolutely, absolutely. So my name is Charles Sterling. I'm a graduate of Philadelphia College of Textiles and Science, which is now known as Jefferson University in Philadelphia. I graduated in 1987 with a Bachelor of Science in Computer Management. And that'll be some of the basis of what I'll be talking about, that you don't have to have a computer science degree and that you could be more broad in your STEM endeavors. I'm currently the host, hotels and resorts manager of network operations and the chief information security officer for host hotels and resorts. I'm also a former business owner. I've owned a IT consulting firm called Sterling ETS LLC, and I did that for 6 years, from the years 2006 to 2012. And so I do have a background of running a successful business, working for someone, and then working for myself, which is a challenge and a different challenge. Fun fact about myself, I am a avid comic book fan collector. I still currently have some books that are probably worth a few $1,000s. Not quite certain what I'm going to do with those books yet. They're still in a plastic bag, never to be read, down in my basement. But I can talk for hours concerning things from DC to Marvel to X-Men, Fantastic Four, anything. And me and my kids enjoy having conversations as if these were real people. So that is one of the things that churns my creative juices. I'll pass it on to you, sir.
I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much, Mr. Sterling. Looking forward to your presentation. I'll now give the floor over to Mr. Young, who's with us today. Mr. Young, same thing.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dewan Young. I'm with Verizon. I'm specifically part of Verizon Partner Solutions Organization. Is a global organization that supports companies across the globe in creating strategic partnerships and alliances in ways that you can leverage the various assets within Verizon to grow their top line revenue and Verizon. So formerly known as Verizon Global Wholesale. And you think of the various assets within Verizon, we do wireless, we do maybe your cable TV, AOL, Yahoo, across the board. There's various assets and various technologies. So I'm excited about today's discussion because from a technology perspective, we deal in a lot of the next generation technologies that are coming down the pipeline. From fun fact perspective and also a preemptive question that I often get, I have no clue why if you put your Apple phone in rice, it somehow is supposed to work. So if you're gonna ask me that, that's the question I often get. I have no idea why that works. The other question is if you're on T-Mobile, Sprint, or AT&T, and you have calls drop or bad service, and you're wondering why, it's just because of bad life choices is the reason why that's basically happening. But sorry to anybody who works for either of those companies. But with that, I'll toss it back over to you, Brother Cole.
Excellent, Mr. Young. We're really looking forward to your presentation. Thank you so much for that. It's always good to have a representative from the telecommunications industry here with us today. And then lastly, I'll give it to Mr. Sharp for just a brief introduction. If he could tell us a little bit about himself. Mr. Sharp?
Indeed, I am a native of Washington, D.C., and I am now residing in Northern Virginia. I graduated from Frostburg State University in 1983 with dual majors in both fine arts as well as advertising graphic design. And through my career, I have actually grown from the lowest on the totem pole, junior graphic designer, junior illustrator at SAIC, Science Applications International Corporation, all the way up to where I am now. I also had a venture there with Sprint for about 14 years, and Sprint actually bought Nextel, I think, the last day I was there. And I think since then they've sputtered to the dark. I have been with Amtrak now for a little over 16 years, and I am there now as their creative director. So you could say that I've basically climbed from the bottom to the top. So the fun fact about Marlon Sharp is I was always called at Lambda Mu chapter of Frostburg State the fun guy. So I'm still out here trying to have fun, even though I'm over the hill.
And Mr. Sharp, there's no such thing as over the hill. You got a young and curious heart. You can be successful not only in STEM but in broader life as well.
Bless
you. Appreciate you having you on. All right. So for the next hour, what we're going to do is we're going to have the panelists give their presentations. We're going to, after each panelist is given the opportunity to speak, we'll stop and we'll look at the Q&A for any questions or remarks that you would like the panelists to answer, or anything that in their presentation that you would just like them to clarify. Myself and Mr. Sprouse, who's my associate, will be monitoring the chat as well as the Q&A. So if you have questions that come up throughout the presentation, please feel free to go ahead and put those there. And then we'll make sure that we're monitoring those and giving them to the panelists. If you are in Kappa League, which Kappa League is a program that's underneath our Guide Writer umbrella, you are expected to have some questions to ask our panelists today in order to advance the discussion. So we really look forward to anything that you guys have to ask in order to facilitate the discussion. With that being said, we'll go ahead and give it to our first panelist, Mr. Sterling, in order for him to give his piece. Mr. Sterling, it's on you, my friend.
Thank you, sir. And I want to welcome everyone who's joined us this afternoon. I think this is very important as you're deciding on your career path to see what's out there and see how these things are impacting your life, and you get as much information as possible. And so that's my challenge here today, is to impart by telling you a little bit about my career path and where I've been, impart some wisdom as to how you can find your own path and utilize the STEM stack to further your career path. So I'm going to share a little bit with you here. So as I said before, I have a BS actually in computer management, not science. And I had a psychology minor, and why that's important. I tried to figure out what would go well with computer management. How could I use that to get to where I wanted to be? And what I found out is that psychology is the study of what drives people. How do people react to certain things? Um, what's their motivation? And you'll find that as you're getting into business, no matter what business it is, that it's very useful to understand the motivation of the person on the other side of you. How can I get them to feel that they trust me? How can I get them to feel that what I'm doing is the right thing for them? And psychology gave me those insights, and it actually showed me the way that people think and what their motivations are and what their drives are. Very, very similar to what yours are going to be, but you have to understand that when you're talking to somebody and you're either selling yourself in an interview, or you're selling an idea to that person on the other side of the table, or you're simply responding to something they're telling you. How do I respond appropriately so that the person on the other side gives me, what I'm looking for? And so I was very fortunate to fall into that psychology minor and have very good teachers back in 1987, or 1984 through 87. Um, Let me tell you how I got here real quick. I spoke to my father. We were having a conversation about careers and where we wanted to be. And he had this story about a guy that he worked with who happened to be a computer engineer. And one of the things he said about the guy is that this gentleman seems to show up on his job having been all around the world traveling here and there, and he spends a week or 2 week at my father's location doing what he had to do, and then he was off someplace else, and that was really intriguing to me. I wanted to travel extremely much when I was in college, and that's what I wanted to do, so much so that I took 2 years of Japanese. While I was in college, I took classes where I wrote and spoke Japanese. That's how we did it. You walked in that class, you were not allowed to use English. You used Japanese the whole time. You read Japanese and you wrote in Japanese. Now, growing up as a kid in the ghetto of Philadelphia, there's not a lot of chances outside of college to use that. And so I didn't expand too much on my Japanese. And unfortunately, I've never made it to Japan, even though I was scheduled to go several times. Something always came up and I never made it over there. However, I knew enough that when I had responsibility um, for people in Japan. I actually had responsibility for several countries, the UK, Japan, and a few other continents, that when the Japanese contingent came into the room, I could actually greet them in Japanese. And their eyes lit up that a young black man from Philadelphia could actually speak Japanese, not well, but I could at least say hello, how are you doing, here's my name, here's my business card, the type of business stuff you could learn. It goes to show you that there's a lot of stuff that you need to incorporate into your career plans. And so I'll talk about that as well as we go through this. To this date, I'm about 33 years into the computer systems experience, um, where I've done a number of jobs. Like Mr. Sharp said, I started from the bottom. I started as a programmer, programming things for Bank of America and tax programs and things like that, which is pretty mundane, but it helped me do things in a structured way. I then moved on to a help desk analyst, where I got to help people in different fields and from different companies and help them navigate. These were the early days of computers. These were green screen computers where people had two floppy disks and that's all they had for during their programs and things. And I got to work with companies such as American Express, the Boston Company, the several large insurance companies, several large technology companies, and I started to live my dream because I was that analyst. They started sending me around the country, and I traveled extensively in the U.S. My daughter asked me the other day, you know, how many states have I gone to? And I think to date I've been to 38 United States, um, 2 continents. I spent a whole lot of time in Hawaii and a whole lot of time in the UK. I've managed teams in Japan, managed teams in the UK, managed teams in the US. So this career, the STEM career, has really broadened my horizons and given me the opportunity to do that. I also had the ability to take on different challenges. So I've done database administration, network administration, security leads. Um, Hopefully they're not still using this, but I updated and revived the system for what they refer to as FedEx for the United States military. So however they send packages in the United States military, I rewrote the program for that. And I actually have a plaque on my wall where the United States military gave me accommodation for writing that program. So I was involved. I spent a whole lot of time at the Pentagon, a whole lot of time on naval yards and things like that with the Naval and Marine Corps information systems. So I've been a lot of places with that. But I've had some ups and downs. You're going to find out in your career that you need to persevere. You need to get past stuff. You need to figure out what your goal is and not let people deter you from that. So in my career, I've gone through 3 firings, not because I did anything wrong in particular, but because that was the choice that the person made. Is that, hey, that Sterling guy, we no longer need him, and you have to pick yourself up after that happens and keep going. You know, you have to say that I'm still worth my self-worth. I'm still good at what I do, and find somebody else who's going to believe in that. I've gone through 3 layoffs in this area of the country. That happens quite often. Um, and so, with family and child to take care of, I've been at that place where the companies ran out of business or didn't have anything else to do, and they started laying people off. And I was part of that. But again, you know, you got to pick yourself up, talk to your contacts. You know why I've survived those things? I've survived those things because of relationships, because people like me, because I know people and we talk and they say, hey, we're looking out for you. We know you went through a rough patch, but we'll look out for you and we'll find something for you. So keep that in mind. There's a old adage in business that, you know, the people you step on the way up the same people you're going to have to kowtow to or be kind to on your way back down. So you need to be nice on your way up so that if you have a situation like this, that there are people there willing to help you and to put you in a better position. In my time, I've changed jobs. I counted 10 times. That's 10 times I've had to change companies or positions to move forward in my career. So changes happen. And so I always get asked by, you know, family and friends, you know, what is it that you do? And people always seem to think that I work with computers. That's not true. I work with people. Uh, I am there so that people can start doing the things that make them valuable, right? Whether it's sending emails, whether it's completing tasks, that's my job, is to work with people. So I have to communicate with people. Um, I put people in touch with the right process to get something done. You know, how do I get from A to B? How do I get from A to Z? You know, it's my job to figure out what's the right process for that person to use. The technology that we put together is simply there so that people can complete that. The technology supports the process that the person is using. So my job is to work with people to figure out what the right process is and then marry that process with the right technology. How do I get to that? It's simply through communication. I have to be able to communicate to people and understand what it is they need to do, how they do it, and then come up with a better way for them to get their job done. That's what my job is. I don't work with computers. Computers work for me. I'm not a computer person. I'm a people person. And if I don't connect with people, then I can't do my job. And so that's what I do from day in to day out. I go to work with people. So here, as you're looking forward in your career, here's the things that I've found that help. The keys to your success in any STEM career or any career, whether it's STEM or not, is that you have to, one, accept challenges. I've been put in positions where people said, "Hey, Charles, we need you to do this." I had no clue of how to do it, but I said, "You know what? I'm going to find out. I'm going to read the book. I'm going to ask the right people. I'm going to figure out how to do this job and do it right." I never accept defeat. If something doesn't work, it doesn't mean it's the end. It just means I need to find a better way to make it work. It just means that I need to pause, think about it. How do I get around it? And then do it better the next time. So it's never a defeat, it's a lesson. It's a lesson about, well, don't do it that way anymore. you know, if you're running full speed and you hit a brick wall, your lesson should be, don't run into that wall again. Move to the right, go around the wall, look up, see the wall coming for you. Okay, so it's never a defeat. So you never accept defeat. You always seek to learn a new skill. No matter what you think you're good at, there's always something that you can learn. And I had a very wise person tell me one time when I was new in the business, they had offered people to go to these classes. And I was like, I don't feel like it. It's not in my field. I really don't want to do it. And the person pulled me aside and said, never turn down training. Always learn something. And I went to that class and I learned something that I still use to this day. You know, I constantly accept new challenges. I never accept defeat. And I always seek to learn a new skill because that new skill will be very valuable to the next person I talk to. Which is why I've had so many jobs. I've learned so many different skills that I now can work across all kinds of boundaries. All right. In business, you have to speak different languages. Now we are all accustomed to the fact that there's a language you speak with your friends. There are languages that, yo homie, what's up? How you doing? My man, my guy. There are ways to talk to people that close to you and around your neighborhood. When you go into an office, there are ways to speak to the people who are there. And sometimes you need to stand back, listen, understand how people are speaking to each other, and then go forward and speak the way they are. So, as technology people, people tend to think that we only talk techie talk, that we only talk, ones and zeros and about computer systems. And that's true amongst ourselves in that group. We need to communicate and have that knowledge that this person across the table from me understands. And I'll tell you, I used to be a young black manager. I used to be the whiz kid on the block. I'm a lot older now. You see the salt and pepper on my head, but I used to be considered the whiz kid. And when you're the whiz kid, you have to get those seasoned technology people who are now leading in a team or a group. You now need to get them on your side so they understand that you're just not some wet behind the ears kid, that you understand. So that's where that techie talk comes in handy because I can talk to them on their level. The other thing that makes me extremely valuable to my management is that they can send me into a room of lay people, people who are not techies, people who don't understand the technology, and I can explain the technology to them using their terms. Okay, I don't go in speaking high level tech talk to them. I go in speaking very basic. What's their motivation? What do they need to get done? How can they do it? And then maybe I'll throw in a tech term to impress them at the end. But trust me, I'm only talking to what they understand and how they understand it. Um, then I have to then explain that to my managers and my boss. Managers and bosses are very busy people. They don't have a lot of time for you to go through the whole thing. So there's a sort of shorthand that you have to speak to them with. You have to get right to the point of what is it that they want to know and how do they want to know it. Okay. Now, this communication skill isn't just me talking to people. Sometimes it's me writing. And I used to tell my kids all the time that there are days or weeks that I'll go by and I'll write 2 to 3 10-page papers because I'm writing to different people about different things and I'm explaining all these things. And I have to quickly write those papers um, to talk to a specific audience, or I put together presentations that talk to a specific audience. So learning to speak different business languages is an extremely good skill. It's something I learned in my psychology minor. It's something I learned by going through all those jobs. You just have to learn how to talk it. All right. Take time to learn what everybody else does in your organization and how that contributes. Um, I've been fortunate enough to be given control of several different teams that I had no idea what they did, as far as what their day-to-day activities were. But someone felt enough confidence in me that I could go and make that team better. Well, how do I do that? I don't go in and just immediately tell that team everything to do. I go in and listen. I go in and look. I go in and find out what is it that this person does that adds to the business, that adds to the contribution of how this business is successful. And then I learn their job, not to take over their job, but to understand, what it takes to do their job, to empathize with that person as to how they do this. But also, when we go into a meeting and I now have all those people around, those people actually have confidence in me that I understand what they do day to day. I've literally gone and sat down by people's desks and said, you know what? I'm here to learn. Tell me how you do your job. If you feel confident enough, let me do one of them. And then I get to a point where I understand all these people's roles and their key contributions to the organization. And then I'm able to understand how best to do my job, how my job helps them complete theirs. And so that's very important to sit back and listen. Now, I've said that a few times, and I hope people are getting that. Your greatest skill sometimes is to observe and to take in information so that you know how to apply that information. Okay. The wisest person in the room is not the person that talks the most, but the person who observes and understands the most. And you can come into a room and you can watch everybody around, and those people who are out, who are in that room and are constantly speaking, sometimes they're not the smartest person in the room. You can watch people's eyes and you can see that this person over here who hasn't said anything but understands everything, that's the person you need to know. Because that person, you'll watch people as they're talking and they'll look over and say, oh, does he agree with me? Oh yeah, he does. Okay. All right. That's the person who's in charge. All right. So it's not, so you just have to observe. Observing is one of the most important skills of any career, whether it's STEM, whether it's creative, any skill, that is your most important skill for any career. So, you may be thinking of a career in music. You may be thinking of a career that incorporates graphic design. You may be looking at a hard career like architect, politics, medical field, um, legal field, politicians. Um, all those things have one thing in common. They all use STEM. There is a STEM component in absolutely every field that you can think of. So that STEM person is one of the most important people in the organization because they, first of all, can span the gap of what people know. That STEM person can help people get from point A to point Z by using all the skills we just talked about: listening, understanding what people need, understanding their motivation, understanding what they're trying to achieve. You know, all you're doing is figuring out how best to utilize STEM to go forward. So if you're looking at a career and saying, how is it that I can use STEM in something that I'm really passionate about? There's always a way and there's always a component in that field to use it. So talking about this, and here's a fun fact about it. Linux right now is uh, one of the top operating systems for computers. There are Microsoft computers and then there's Linux. Microsoft has about 80 or so, maybe not even that much anymore, about 60% of the market and operating systems, and almost everything else you use runs on some version of Linux. Linux got its start from a system called Unix. Unix got its start from a system called Multitech. And the only reason that we have Linux today is because there was a bunch of guys who were working on the Multitech project when they were first trying to develop it, who, to blow off some steam, started playing some video games. And they wanted to actually play games on the applications that they were running. And the guys that were running the project said, hey guys, look, I'm sorry, your video games are taking up processing time, and that's very expensive. So I need you to take your games and move them someplace else so that we can get this job done. And the guys that were trying to play the games, you know, they were smart. They were like, okay, fine. You use your project. We're going to go over here and start this simple system that's for one user, Unix, Uni, and we're going to build our games on that system. Well, what happened was, because they were trying to build this system for games and they wanted to make it simple and everything else, that the guys who were in the major project looked at what they were doing and said, wow, that system is amazing. It does everything we were just trying to do, and it runs. So why don't we invest in that system? At the time, the investment was made by a company called Bell Laboratories. Bell Laboratories right now is what you consider AT&T on one half, Verizon on the other half. Verizon and AT&T used to be one company. And they invested all the money and activities into the Unix system. That Unix system went on to become a major operating system. Most major companies ran Unix for their main systems, not Microsoft. Microsoft was a little PC that, you know, mom and pops used at home. Unix was the major operating system. That Unix system has now evolved into Linux, where almost everything you use as a computer or a blender is built on top of a Linux system. And it all started because someone thought outside the box. Someone thought that, hey, I have a challenge. I'm not going to be defeated because they told me I can't do this. I want to make it so that it runs my game. And I have to make this system so simple that it communicates across the board, that even lay people understand what this system does. That's how Linux was developed. They listened to what they needed. They got to a final um, solution. They didn't let anything deter them. And that's what you need to do to be successful in your careers.
Mr. Sterling, thank you so much. I do want to make sure that we're moving along. But what we'll do is we'll take a moment to stop and just if anyone has any questions from the audience, if you could post it in our Q&A, we'd be more than happy for to answer it. Mr. Sterling would be more than happy to answer it. All right, while they're typing the questions, I have one, Mr. Sterling. So you
Yes,
mentioned
sir.
that you work with global teams. So I'm assuming that you work a lot with video conferencing technologies even before the coronavirus. So tell us a little bit about what's so unique about STEM that brings different cultures and different countries together for a common goal or a common product and project, and what's working together cross country like.
Absolutely. So it used to be that, and I was just having this conversation earlier today with my daughter, that it used to be I had to get on a plane and I would have to travel 10 to 12 hours to get over to the UK to talk to people, just to talk about their projects. And then I would spend 2 days there and get back on a plane and come back to the UK, sorry, the US, and then talk to my team here. Or I get on a telephone and I would have to imagine what they're doing and how they're doing it. The STEM community has made the world small. Now I can work with a team that's in the UK. I can work with a team in Japan. I can work with a team in Italy, all at the same time. We can all work on the same project. We can all work and visualize what's going on in multiple teams. Um, what would have taken me a whole week or 2 weeks to talk to both teams can now take me 1 hour on video conferencing just to make sure that everybody's in sync and everybody's moving along at the same rate. It's made our world so small that I no longer have to get on a plane, travel 9 hours in the air where I'm not communicating with anyone until I land, then get to my hotel room, get rested, get back to an office. I mean, I've lost a whole day. So, with the invention of these new technologies for video conferencing, we've really shrunk that time frame down. And we've gone from what used to take a 3 year cycle for technology. We're now down to probably about 4 months of new technology rolling out.
Okay, awesome. And then we do have one question from the field. So another one, this will be the last one before we give the floor to Mr. Young. So the question for you, Mr. Sterling, is which of the STEM letters coincides with a career as a music producer?
I would have to say, actually, that's a very good question, and it would probably be all of them. Um, Music producers nowadays um, use things like Pro Tools, which is a application on a computer that allows you to organize the different beats and the different sounds, and that would coincide with everything that we're doing in a STEM field. It's your science, your technology, your engineering. You need to know um, the math part just to say what notes go well with each other in a music career. You need to know how things sound to someone's ear. You need to utilize your technology to shorten the time to take those beats and put it in the right sequence and to loop it and bring it back. Um, the engineering part, how do you make a better system? Who has the idea for better Pro Tools out there? And that's what we're looking for in a STEM career.
Okay, thank you so much. And then we did have one more question, but we're going to hold on to it until a little bit later. We did want to give the floor to Mr. Young just to give enough time. Mr. Sterling, thank you so much for that presentation. We really do appreciate it. And now we'll go ahead and give the floor to Mr. Young from Verizon to get into his piece.
You guys see my screen?
We can. The floor is yours.
All right, so the interesting thing is with Brother Sterling just hitting all of those points, and I know Brother Sharp as well, he mentioned the graphic design engineer. There's going to be a lot of overlap between these discussions. I mean, the important points that Brother Sterling just hit around, persistence, resilience, accepting challenges, taking on new things, understanding organizations, they're so critical. And I think there's probably a lot of overlap in our experiences. So what I'll do is I'll try and tell my story. But like I said, there's a lot of overlap as we talk about STEM. I mentioned what I do with Verizon. I'm on the product marketing side. So we look at all of these new next generation technologies, and we figure out, as I mentioned, strategic partnerships and alliances of how to get those in the marketplace. So a lot of the new things that are coming down the pipeline, like IoT, which I'll talk about, Internet of Things, machine learning, artificial intelligence, software applications, our team figures out how to productize those and bring those to the market. I attended James Madison University. I'm a Duke, go Dukes. I spent half my life in Chicago. My parents divorced and we moved out to Northern Virginia. So I went to high school and college in Virginia. And then after college, I went back to Chicago. Shout out to my wife, Jennifer, and my son, DJ, is a freshman at NYU. And my daughter, Autumn, is at Flint Hill in Fairfax. An additional fun fact, besides the rice that we talked about earlier, which kind of plays into what we're talking about from a STEM perspective, is that I worked at a radio station for 4 years, WXJM in Harrisonburg, Virginia. I saw Donnie Simpson, and you guys are probably not old enough to remember this, but he had a show called Video Soul. He was also in the area, WPGC. He was on the radio, and he was on Video Soul. And I saw what he did, and I was like, that's what I want to do. This guy gets to play music and talk to artists all day. That's a really dope career. So my time at college was focused on being on the radio. I had several radio shows. I was the urban director, and I was focused in that realm going forward. So one of the things as we talk about STEM and how it relates to, there was a question about music production, is that just let your journey be your journey. That where you lead, where you think you're going, take what you learn. And as Brother Sterling just mentioned, STEM touches so many different areas, but the experiences that you get from your passions can drive you anywhere. So next slide. One quick thing I want to hit is that on this slide, I get to speak with minority youth around the country, from Chicago, New York, Hampton, Howard, DC Public Schools, Loudoun Schools, as part of the Verizon Innovative Learning Program. And so this experience, Brother Sterling was just talking about it, is that we're on Zoom, and Brother Cole mentioned it as well. Verizon has a product called Blue Jeans as well, but we're all in the video conferencing realm. So I'm usually having these experiences face to face and in the depths of it. So to the point, I want to make this as interactive as possible. Me personally, I am very easily amused, but quickly distracted. So I can really relate to kids that, really have to be in focus and engaged. So one, we appreciate you being here, but also however you want this conversation to go, feel free to use the chat boxes as Brother Cole mentioned, to stop me at any time, because this is important and interactive. The reason why this is important to Verizon is that, the future is technology, science, technology, engineering, and math. And a lot of the products and solutions that we create really need the creativity that you guys bring today. You guys are what we call digital native. When I was young, we talked on the telephone, and if I was on the phone, there was a long cord between myself and the phone, and I could only go as far as that cord would take me. Usually it was in the kitchen. You guys have grown up with the smartphone in your hand, with the compute power that we saw in spaceships back when I was a kid. But from the day that you were born, you've had compute and storage processing power in your hand that could just take you throughout the globe. So you're what we call digital native. You've always had smartphones. You've always had these things. Let those passions drive you to where you want to go for the future. Next slide. I'm going to tell you really quick about my journey. It overlaps a little bit, as I mentioned. My first internship, I showed up, as I mentioned, when I was in college, I was focused on radio, but my first internship was a company called MFS Telecom. And I showed up the first day and the guy asked me, hey, do you draw? I said, no. Do you do graphics? I said, no. He said, well, we need you to do graphic design. There's a book over there, learn it, and then figure out how to do it. So I spent the summer learning how to do graphic design. And at the end of the summer, I was doing programs called AutoCAD software. And I was doing graphic design by the end of that summer. I did that for 2 summers straight. After my junior year, before my senior year, my next internship was with a company called Ameritech, which is now part of AT&T. We mentioned Bell Labs. It's all part of the same family. But I showed up to that internship and the guy said, hey, do you know how to make websites? I said, no, I don't know how to do that. He said, well, there's a book over there. I need you to build me a website by the end of the summer. I said, all right. So I took the book, I built a website for them. And at the end of the summer, they had a website for their public. And this is a time where websites weren't as prevalent, but I had to learn that from scratch. Fast forward, they offered me a job. I had to make the decision. Now, this goes back to the conversation we're having around, we want you to be a part of STEM. We want you to follow your passions. I had an opportunity to work at radio stations or record labels after college, but when I got the opportunity to work in the technology field, I tell my wife and kids I sold out. I got the job offer in telecom, and then I was going to basically be paid nothing to work at the record labels. So I took the money instead, and I've had a 25+ year career in telecom ever since. But I do miss the radio and music, and I always had a love for that. But when I started that job, going back to the point, I was in a rotational program. My first role was as a database administrator. Again, they asked, do you know anything about databases? No. There's a book over there, learn it. I had some data entry folks that reported to me, and I had to learn programming. He talked about Linux and Unix, but that comes full circle that you had to learn Unix, had to understand Linux, because as Brother Sterling mentioned, it was deep into the telecom core. But I mentioned this to say that, it's you have passions today, there's things that you look at, but a lot of things, as Brother Sterling mentioned, is learning things as it comes to you and being open to learn new things and not shutting things down. And that's really made the biggest difference for me in my career, is that, I'm not today, as I mentioned, I'm in marketing and sales. I enjoy doing marketing and sales, but I've done everything from graphic design, database administration, website development, operations, engineering, the entire like. When I was at Booz Allen, I had the opportunity to learn everything about critical infrastructure. I won the Black Engineer of the Year award while I was at Booz Allen. Exciting things that happened after that. We won a $1 billion contract with a company called XO in the cloud computing space, but it's been an iterative process of learning new technologies. So although you guys are digital natives and you've always had a smartphone in your hand, my challenge would be open to learning new technologies, and what you don't know, that's the beauty of your journey. And I'm kind of like the Forrest Gump of telecom, just kind of go from one thing to the next thing. And it's worked out, but it's really about that persistence, resilience, and just being open and learning new things. Now with my career at Verizon, I've been at Verizon for 10 years. It's been a fun ride. I get to travel across the globe. But the thing that I like most is about the opportunity to have conversations with minority students in STEM, but also be close to new technologies that are coming down the pipeline, like machine learning, like IoT, like artificial intelligence. So to bring those to market, partner with minority companies, partner with large companies on how do we bring these solutions to market and bring those to bear. So it's really been an exciting ride for me in technology. I wouldn't say that I'm a technologist, an engineer, or a programmer, or anything of the like. I've just been somebody who's just been willing to try new things. and go with what was in front of me. So I would encourage you guys, as you look at your career, if you feel like, hey, I don't have it all figured out, that's fine. It's a journey, but just really be open to the process. So where will your journey lead you? You know, the possibilities are endless. You know, Pharrell, you mentioned music production. He leads, he's one of our ambassadors for the Verizon Innovation Program, but he's pushing STEM and the importance of engineering, the importance of math, to the question that was in the chat box around how does music production touch the arts? How does it touch music production? The person who runs the board is called an engineer because he's working on a soundboard. So all of this comes full circle, and you have the opportunity to look around you and develop the future that you're looking to have. And I think when we talk about the future, I would implore all of you guys to look around you in a way that is aware of how technology is changing everything around you. So the Internet of Things is really the placing of connectivity in devices that normally didn't have it, whether that's a traffic light, whether that's a watch, whether that's a car with autonomous vehicles. There's so many things, and your future is in front of you. If we were in front of you, I would ask you guys, actually I will, in the chat box, if you know, how long was it between the time that Instagram was created and the time that it was purchased by Facebook? How long did that take? If anybody knows that answer, I'll go on. But really quick, if you know how long it took from the minute that Instagram was created to the moment it was purchased by Facebook. Some of you guys may not even know that Instagram is owned by Facebook. But my point is that you have to look at the world around you and how can it be disrupted, whether it's a toaster, whether it's the way that you get up in the morning and brush your teeth. Is there a digital way that you can disrupt that process? Right now, I'm sitting next to a Peloton bike to the right of me that's off the screen. This is basically a stationary bike, but what Peloton has done is they brought social media, they brought all these things into it to disrupt the way that a stationary bike is used. And that's what I would implore you to do. Look at the world in a different lens and how can you transform it? The answer to my question was 18 months. From the founding of Instagram, which is a social media platform, to the minute it was purchased by Facebook, it took 18 months. So it's not just about careers, it's also entrepreneurship, because I work with new companies and new startups within Verizon as well that are looking to leverage our various technologies. So you as young people, look at the world differently and how can it be changed by technology. So I'm going to speed through these last few slides, but one of the things that you need to be aware of is a term that's called the fourth industrial revolution. There's T-shirts out there that, we built this joint for free. The original labor was us as African Americans, as slavery was the agriculture mindset. The first industrial revolution was the mechanization of that labor, which we call the Industrial Revolution. The second was the mass production of that. When cars came about and we started mass producing cars, that was the second Industrial Revolution. In my lifetime, my career is really based on the third Industrial Revolution, which the programmatic, the internet, the explosion of the internet, how connectivity has changed. On the wireless side, we've gone from the basic connection, and some of you guys don't even remember the internet when it made that noise like shh, to now, you're getting a gig speed to your phone with 5G. That revolution changed the way that we've done businesses. It's created companies like Google and Uber and the lot. And then the fourth industrial revolution is the one that you guys are going to grow up in, which is exactly what I just talked to you about. How do you disrupt a business in a real way? And how do you use IoT? How do you use machine learning? How do you use artificial intelligence in new and unique ways? So when you hear that phrase, just know, hey, so many generations, so many decades, the world has changed in a significant way. And the cool, dope thing about it is you're in the midst of the fourth industrial revolution. So how are you going to put your footprint and your handprint on the fourth industrial revolution? It starts with the way that you look at the world. You guys are experiencing things. You know, I have this conversation with kids, you know, at these schools, and if I ask a group of kids, do they game? Or are they on games? All of them will raise their hand. Oh yeah, what's your favorite game? Fortnite. Oh, what's this, that? Know everything about a game. But I would challenge you again. You know, you guys are creative people. Have you ever thought about creating a video game? What would be a dope video game to you? How can I change the way vehicles are changing? Every little industry, every little thing is going to be transformed in your lifetime. So through technology. So take the opportunity to really look at that, because there's significant opportunities that are coming from medicine to manufacturing to the like. Brother Sterling touched on it. Every industry is going to be touched by STEM, and it's going to transform in your lifetime. So it's not so much about the opportunity of figuring out what you want to do. Just know the technology will be a part of it, just like it has always been a part of it throughout your whole life. But your opportunity to figure out what your place is really about how you open your eyes and how willing you are to kind of accept those challenges. Again, I'll close out really quick here. The future's right in front of you. It's right now. I can't say that enough. The future is right now. Just look at the way you look at the world, look at the new technologies that come about, and then make sure that you're carving out a place. Like I said, I didn't grow up. I wasn't, this generation. When I grew up, I was able to leave the house as soon as I woke up, and I just had to be home by the time the street lights came home. That was the way I grew up. Today you guys spend the day in front of devices. Computers, handhelds, smartphones, the like. The world is in your palm, whereas all we have is encyclopedias, and nobody really want to look at an encyclopedia or do a report on an encyclopedia. But you have Google, you have all these wonderful tasks. I would just implore you, just take advantage of all of the technology that is in front of you, because it's really an amazing time for you guys. But you got to embrace it, and then know that the sky's not the limit. It's just a view. So there's a huge opportunity out there for you guys. Now, really quick, I just want to touch on this one thing, and this is about I can geek out, but it's important that we keep this high level. There's a thing that in Internet of Things called DNA, right? That we talk about. There's the devices, the network, and then applications. Devices, networks, and applications. So you think about a smartphone, a smart meter, a sensor, a camera. That's the device. The network is the connectivity that companies like Verizon and others provide to that device, whether it's a tablet, a phone, a gaming console, whatever. And then there's the various applications that take that data that's on the device, and then they present it in a way to do enormous things. DNA, devices, networks, and applications. You guys have an opportunity, if your interest is in engineering, to create the new devices of the future. Is there a device? My son was having a conversation about creating a new straw. I don't know why you need a new straw, but he thought that was an idea. Hey, that's your future. What are the devices that you could create and make them smart and digitally disruptive? The network, how do we get it faster? Like I said, when I was growing up, the internet was so slow. We own a company called AOL, and the dial-up service was so slow. And now you have all of this speed and this huge highway in front of you, and you have the network. So how can you even improve that in the future? And then the applications, as was mentioned before, you develop on those, and there's any number of things that disrupt. Most of the things that have created the new economy are the applications, whether you're talking about Airbnb, Uber, Netflix, all of those. So whether it's a career in these applications or something that you create as an entrepreneur on how to do that. One of the other things that you could do is, look up what a hackathon is, and is there a team that you guys as capital leaders can put a hackathon team together on an application that you can present and potentially pitch to VCs. There's so many exciting things. I'm so serious. There's so many dope, creative, exciting things that you guys could be a part of as youth that you should really be excited about it, but you have to take advantage of the things that are in front of you guys. So follow the money. I know that you're probably on here if your parents made you. I don't know why you're not watching football right now and you listen to us. Maybe Hilton is twisting your arm, but the money slide is here. There's a big money opportunity here. there's probably a significant opportunity. Brother Sterling mentioned that he got into IT because he wanted to change. He wanted to travel the world. I've had the opportunity to travel to places that, when I was a youth in Chicago, I didn't think I was going to see, past Chicago, but I've been all over the globe, and it's been an exciting ride. But all of that digital transformation that I talked about, it's happening globally, and the world is a smaller place. So when you talk about digital transformation, there's an opportunity to bring that to you. More and more, my son sells stuff that he gets from China on Amazon. Companies like Baba, JD, and the like, those companies are there. It's a smaller world because of the internet. Find out your place and your opportunity to figure out the opportunities that exist across the globe. It was touched on before, every single industry, this is an eye chart, but the net of what this is saying is that nothing you can touch doesn't have the opportunity to be disrupted by technology. We call it digital transformation, but in its simplest form, digital transformation, I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember taxis, but I had to go on the street as an African-American man and wave at a taxi and hope that it came by when I needed a taxi. And that's how you got into a taxi. And today you guys pull out your phone, call an Uber, and the car comes to you. That's called disruption. And one of the things we talk about with our companies across Verizon, all of our companies, Verizon is a $140 billion custom company. We do business with all of the Fortune 500s down to mom and pop shops. And the thing that we talk to that I talk to businesses, whether it's a startup or AT&T, T-Mobile, is that if you're not looking to disrupt the way that you do business, then somebody's going to come along and disrupt you. So if you're not looking at digital transformation and the way that you do business, the way that you experience your customers experience your product, the way that your customers buy your products, then somebody's going to come along, just like Uber did the taxi cabs, just like Airbnb did the hotels, and they're going to disrupt your industry. So the thing is to disrupt yourself, your business yourself. So whatever you guys want to do, whatever you want to go after from a career perspective, it's an exciting time. Like I said, there's an interesting documentary. Tanashi Coates said that people created fictionally a race, but we made ourselves a people. And the reason why I'm here on a Sunday talking to you guys instead of watching football is that in the meetings that I want to see more of my people in the meetings that I'm in and the places that I go and the conferences that I go to. So like I said, appreciate you guys taking the time. Copy down that link if you want. There's resources on there for you guys to download and just take a look at and to grow in the innovation space. And with that, Brother Cole, I'll answer any questions or toss it back to you.
No problem, Mr. Young. I really do appreciate it. So we do appreciate the audience for listening in. Please go ahead and ask your questions if you have any in the Q&A. Then we'll give it to Mr. Young in the meantime. So while the questions are being typed up, I had a question for Mr. Young. So the first one I had was, out of the different fields of STEM that you were in, you said that you were a graphic designer, you've played around with the back end, more infrastructure related projects. Which was the most lucrative? That's number one. And then which one did you have the most fun? My Brother Cole, my career, it really had, like I said, I have a very short attention span, right? So I have to follow my passion, right? So whereas the lucrative piece, you have to be able to pay your bills. You got to be able to, afford things. But where I'm really in my sweet spot is things that I'm passionate about. I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy technology. I enjoy new technologies. And so that's really my sweet spot. I wasn't built to be a programmer. Like the whole headphones and the hoodie and the Mountain Dew and knocking it out. I did it. And Brother Sterling mentioned I could have conversations with developers because I did it, but it just wasn't, I'm not built like that to sit still. I was the kid that couldn't sit still. So I'm really not built that way. I like to be up and about. So really what I've done is I've really followed my passion in places. So the lucrative thing or my main thing is that, am I making a difference in what I'm doing? Am I excited? And can it keep my attention is what's really driven me. That sounds crazy to say, but there's been things that
are lucrative. I know a lot of people who make money, developers that make money, and especially in this area, because you can hop around from Booz to Lockheed to all of the pro, and they pay you an hourly rate. But if you're not happy doing it, you know, and that's why I said STEM is, all of these kids are digital native. They've had this, but they also got to figure out how to bring their passion into what they're doing. Like I said, so, you know, I wanted to go into radio, so now I get to talk all the damn daggone time about technology. And so that's been where my passion's been. But you know, I've done all of it.
Awesome. Really do appreciate that. And then one last question we wanted to get to. So I see this one off the top of your head. What industries need disruptions right now? So what areas of society that are just really inconvenient, like say for traffic, sitting in traffic for hours and hours a day, or going to the grocery store, things that just take a long time to actually do. So those are just some examples, but off the top of your head, what industries need disruption or creative solutions right now? That's just behind the times of where we're at as a culture.
There's not Brother Cole, there's not an industry or a segment that doesn't need this disruption. So from a manufacturing, you look at what Tesla has done in automobile manufacturing, you know, they're completely robotics, and the humans that are there are watching the robots. Whereas Ford, GM, and the like, you know, those are very manually intensive manufacturing plants. So even with us, as we are a technology company, but we have such a legacy of fiber and the like. Brother Sterling mentioned it. We go back to the Bellcore days, and in the industry, all of us can be disrupted, but you really have to lean into technology. One of the other things you mentioned about being what is exciting is that I really get excited when I see minority startup companies that come to talk to me about how they could leverage Verizon's various assets inside their technology. So there's a lot of players. There's a lot of startups that are coming down the pipeline that, you know, are leveraging new technologies, and they're doing exactly what you're saying, Hilton, is that they're looking at every industry and how can it be disrupted. So I wouldn't take anybody off the table.
Okay. I really do like that. And we want to encourage everyone that's on the phone, that everyone that's going to watch their recording, to find a way to, you know, take a look at the world, like you said, transform the way that you look at it, and then use STEM or use innovation in order to solve those problems, because that's going to be the business drivers. That's going to be the new opportunities, you know, being able to see what everyone else can't and be able to come up with a solution before anyone even thinks that there is a problem. If you're able to do that first, you're going to get to the money. Okay. So Mr. Young, I really do appreciate you. We do have one last panelist that we're going to get to, and then we'll get into an open discussion. We'll try our best to stay on target in terms of time. We may, full disclosure, end up going 5 minutes over, but we're going to get you back to the for the 4:30 football game a little bit later on. So with that, all that said, Mr. Sharp, we'll give it over to you as our last panelist.
Thank you, Brother Cole. I am grateful. Just to be a start out, I am a creative. Someone asked the question earlier, what letter of STEM do you compete in? And honestly, or contribute to, honestly, in creative world, you're doing each and every one of them and then some. First and foremost, I want to say that, you know, I have 2 degrees in my field. I am working in my field. I have not deviated from my field. So never let anybody tell you that you can't do it. I do remember when I was coming up that one of the issues that I had was people in the family were saying, oh, that's not a very good field to go into. You're so good in math. Why don't you just go ahead and be an accountant? Or you're so good with your discussion. Why don't you go be a lawyer? And for me, I didn't want to spend 4 years doing math, you know, and I didn't want to spend 4 years arguing situations and statements trying to become an attorney either. But I knew that my gift was in design, and I knew that my gift was creative. We found out very early. Fine arts, drawing, painting, etc. When I was in the 3rd grade, I went to a special school during the summer to hopefully increase that, but I got put out of the school. I got put out of the school because I was doing 3-dimensional art, 2-dimensionally, et cetera, where adults that were in this class were becoming frustrated because I was in this class. And they're like, look at this little kid doing this stuff. I got put out of the class. So they said, you know, bring him back a couple of years later and we'll take a look and see what we got. I continued to grow in that and continued to develop and applied. It came time to apply for schools. I started applying for schools and I was looking for a good liberal arts college, a good liberal arts program where I could major in what was fine arts. As I was majoring in fine arts, that's when there became communications field, and the communications field opened up a whole gamut of extras. In that, advertising graphic design was also offered. Advertising graphic design was offered. I jumped ship. I went ahead and finished my fine arts degree, but I also jumped over into the communications, visual communications field, where I was able to attain also my bachelor's in advertising graphic design. Now, keep in mind, this is all before the Mac came out. So everything that I was doing was all on a drawing board. When I started with SAIC, I got hired by SAIC in 1984. I did 7.5 years there in their corporate publications department. And I started as a junior graphic designer at the bottom. And that's why I encourage each and every one of you all to not lose hope, not lose faith. There may be a possibility you'll start at the bottom and work your way to the top, just like I've been able to do. And let me tell you something else. If you're one of the best on the planet, you might start in the middle. But keep that focus. The other thing that I wanted to say was you got to go in there being ready, willing, and able. You might have a couple of things against you, first of all, as you walk through the door. And those things, you know, you can jump over, you can leap over. I say ready, willing, and able is never sell yourself short. Okay. You might have some kind of disability or a situation that you think might hinder you in your professional career, but never let that stop you from trying to attain your goal. Know who you are, know where you are, know what you're trying to attain, and go for it. One of the things that I think I was blessed with was my mother was probably my biggest cheerleader, and she kept telling me, you know, go chase your dream. I don't want you to go major in something that you're going to go fail at because you're miserable in it. That's why she said, go ahead, stay in the arts. I was blessed because I had good friends that were at the top of the list that were doing very well in the curriculums that I had to go down through. I hung out with them. I studied with them. I never gave up. And they too became my support system, along with those of my family that finally straggled on to, you know, cheer me along, because as the closer I got, they were the people that talked me down. Those were the people that were in disbelief, but finally they were cheering me on as I made it to my junior and senior year. So I tell you all this with 36.5 years of experience being a creative. After I was at SAIC, and just like Brother Sterling said, I did get to see some of the world because we were illustrating a lot of stuff for a special contract, and it was a secret contract where we put in 3 underground command centers for the Royal Saudi Navy. You all may not believe this or not, but what I was doing was illustrating the books that showed these guys what buttons to push and how to turn things around inside of the UCC and what hallways to go down and where the decontamination center was. We were drawing maps over there and stuff. But that, when I got back from that, I went into corporate publications. I started doing books and illustrations for books. The major people that I probably illustrated for were NASA, Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL, and also for all the environmental people. SAIC has an environmental sector, so I supported that sector probably the last 2 or 3 years of my career with SAIC. Unfortunately, we ran into a situation of I didn't get a bonus one year, and I had the best year of my career. And my boss told me, well, if you didn't like it, Marlon, you're more than welcome to put your resume on the pavement. So I did exactly that. She went away on vacation for 2 weeks, and when she came back, we had to go in her office and have a talk. So I showed her my offer from Sprint, and I was off to Sprint. She was devastated, but I walked off to Sprint. At Sprint, I became their technical writer and creative director there. I was doing creative there for 14 years. And that's, as what I said earlier, was the big telecommunications war. Verizon won out in that. They were actually MCI at the moment in time. And they took a contract off of us that basically kept everybody fed. So I say that to say also, just like Brother Charles Sterling said, there are times where you're not doing anything wrong. It's just that you're the guy that has to be walked out. And I was one of those guys that got walked out. But I was blessed, because I will say this, that a brother of Kappa Alpha Psi knew that I was out of work for 3 days and called me and asked me if I would be interested in a position as the principal graphic designer at Amtrak. And it was a blessing no sooner than I walked through the door. One of the things that I have had to contend with is that headquarters at the railroad was lily white. And I think that there was a lot of bias and a lot of contention when you walk through the door and they put you in an office. And I was even shocked that I was being walked to an office. But it raised a lot of eyebrows, and it raised some hairs on people's necks. But what I was there for was to take them to a different dynamic. We went from black and white to 2-color. We went from 2-color to 4-color in design. And the other thing that we did was, it was on me to build relationships nationwide so that I could support whatever creative endeavor Amtrak may have had. So I say this to say that the key to excellent communication is great listening. You got to listen first, and through that communication, you can reach your resolution. And also, I'm going to go ahead and tell you all this too. There is nothing wrong with being polished, having good manners, good etiquette, excellent speaking, et cetera, et cetera. I just ask and encourage you that you stay humble. I'm in the midst right now of doing interviews of our springtime interns. And in those interviews, we're hearing people say, you know, I'll do this, but I won't do that. And that's a situation, actually, Brother Young just said moments ago, hey, you know, don't go in there telling people what you won't do. Be amicable, be able to be, you know, be that person that wants to jump out there and do what they're asking you to do. He said he didn't know anything about building websites. I didn't know nothing about building websites either. And I said, oh my goodness, I'm gonna get thrown to the wolves having to build, you know, a website. But this brother, they said, there's a book over there. So you go take the book, and or you go take the couple of classes that need to be taken, and you do whatever you need to do so that that can boost you forward and more forward and more forward, and eventually you reach the top. One of the things I'm finding out also is that foundational studies are very important. Get those foundational studies, knock those out quick and in a hurry so that you can get to your point of concentration. And in that point of concentration, do your best. Know what your minimals are and know what your maximums can be. Yet, I encourage you to always strive for better, even trying to be the best. Sometimes it does take us being the best. And I was asked not too long ago, actually, you know, what were my secrets to success? And my secrets to success are the 5 W's and an H: the who, what, why, the where, the when, and how, because how takes you to the final resolution. And you want an excellent resolution. That's what makes people look. And when they look, they see, and when they see and they say, that guy is on my team and that guy does great work. Just like Brother Sterling said, you go seek out those people. Go seek out those people. If you don't know what they do, go seek it out. Go ask them, sit down, spend time with them, and feel around them. I'm working right now by myself because I lost my team. I directed a team of videographers, a photographer, 2 graphic designers that were underneath me. Right now, I don't do video. I'm learning how to do video right now, even though my career is almost over, but I vend my video. Everything else I'm doing. I'm on the train shooting photos. I'm in the stations shooting photos. I'm doing all the graphics and infographics right now that you're seeing that are out there. And Amtrak is on the move. As you all probably saw in the news a couple of weeks ago, we're getting ready to release this new train in 2021 that will go probably 25 miles an hour faster, but make for a safer and more equitable trip. That's the new Acela. So I'm spending a whole lot of time doing that. And the other thing that is really fantastic is we're getting ready to open up the Moynihan Train Hall. That will take the place of New York Penn Station in New York City. And what we did there, all STEM. We actually flew a drone into what was that old post office building. And we showed the development from 2 years ago up to now as we flew the drone through each of the 3 floors that are there. And what we did was we took the architectural illustrations to fill all that in as the drone is flying at about 2 miles per hour through this facility. Again, you needed somebody to be able to direct it, someone to fly the drone, someone to take all those clips and compress them into what was a 2-minute, 3-minute presentation. So like Brother Young said, you all are sitting on the future. You have the future right there in the palm of your hands. And we are leaving it into your durable hands to do something great with it. And we wish you nothing but the best in trying to do that. And I pray that you all are as fortunate as I was. And let me say, I would like to, help anybody along that we can help along. I've been successful with mentoring 3 or 4 people through the graphic design ranks. And I just say, God bless you all. Thanks for having me. Brother Cole, I'll turn it back to you.
Mr. Char, thank you so much. Really do appreciate it. So we are coming to the end of our event. We are a little bit behind. So what we'll do is just modify the schedule a little bit. What we'll do is we'll just do a roundtable, really quick discussion with all of our panelists. We'll do a rapid fire series of questions. And then what we'll do at the end of the 3 or 4 questions that we throw out. So I'll give the floor over to Mr. Sprouls in order to close us out. So this is for, if all the panelists could unmute themselves, this is going to be a group discussion. So the questions that we have from the field is, let's say after this presentation, I'm now interested in STEM. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do before this call, or maybe I had an interest somewhere else, and now I'm interested in pursuing a STEM-related career. So what high school classes should I be taking right now before I get to college that are gonna help me brush up my skills I need to take with me throughout later life?
My suggestion would be, 1, take any of the courses that have to obviously do with some type of computer usage, whether it's learning a new computer program such as Excel for spreadsheets, or Word, or some Office suite applications, or any of the communications courses, such as any video communication, something that has a computer basis to it. And yes, if they offer a programming course, as Mr. Sharp said, programming for computers and STEM is fundamental courses. Those are your basics. Get that under your belt. You might not have to do it again in your future, but it will always help you as you go along in your career.
Mr. Sterling, thank you so much. Anyone else want to piggyback off of that?
Yes, I would like to say too that One thing that helped me out tremendously and has helped out a couple of the people that I have been the mentor to is their guidance counselor. If you have a guidance counselor that you're active with, go ahead and have them make the phone call to find out what you need specifically, as well as going ahead and taking those classes that are the advanced classes, so that you can be ahead of the game instead of in the middle or behind.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that I would echo the same sentiments that Brother Sharp and Brother Sterling just said. I would take it a little further. I mentioned hackathons before. See if there's a way that you can get involved in some of those things, because the Brother Sharp mentioned it. As creatives, there's a process, right, with technology. So when we launch a new product in technology, you have finance folks, you have legal having to review it, you have the marketing folks, you have the graphic design, you have the underlying programmers, you got all of these pieces here that kind of tie into that thing. But I think that at a base level, figuring out what your passion is, figuring out if you're a person that likes developing. Developing is a lot different than it was years ago, right? So like even a website today, there's so many templates and things like that. When I was just writing like pure HTML code, or even with the databases going back to where you were actually programming, there's so many GUI interfaces and stuff like that. The stuff is easier than it was 20 years ago from a development perspective. So just be willing to try things. And if you don't like it, or whether it's robotics, whether it's 3D printing, just try as much as possible and figure out what your school is offering, because really you're limited to the opportunities you have in front of you. The internet is great, but it's really cool when you have programs in your school. So if you only have certain development programs in your school, then figure those out. If there's websites and things that you're doing in Loudoun County, try and get involved in those to try and figure out what you're passionate about, where you can add value. And then you have those conversations and those relationships that both Brother Sterling and Brother Sharp just mentioned, to kind of guide you into where your journey is going to take you.
And Mr. Young, really do appreciate the answer right there. Really do appreciate the answer from everybody. So we'll do a few more questions. The next one is, what companies do you all admire right now? Which companies are doing the most innovative things that you've seen in the last several years? Who should I look at following closely as the next big player? I'll just talk about in my personal life, while we were sleeping, and right under our nose, Apple, Amazon, Google, and Facebook, the current big four and big tech right now. We kind of saw them how they were 20 years ago, really niche players at what they all did. But look at where they are now in terms of their command of the global market share and their command of the information economy. So my question is, what companies are doing the most innovative things beyond those four that I just mentioned? And who's worth following into the future? Who's going to be that next big player?
Netflix.
Care to elaborate?
Huge. Judging from what they were doing 2 years ago to what they're doing now is just amazing. And the reason why I jumped off with them first was because I watched Jingle Jangle last night. Oh my goodness. I mean, the stuff that they are doing, as well as the acting that they are attracting now, is just way above bar. And the fact that they can put those films together faster than what they used to be putting it together. Secondly, I go with Pixar, a Disney company. They used to do Pixar movies that took 3, 4, 5 years to put together. That stuff is coming together now in like a year. I mean, and they're just banging them out. But Netflix is putting a whole lot of stuff out there right now that's just unbelievable.
Yeah. And then for those in the audience, I'm sure that the majority of them probably don't remember the Blockbuster days or the original days of Netflix, where you sent a movie, a physical copy of the movie. You would watch it, and then you got to make sure you put it back, wrap it really nicely, you put it back in the envelope, and then mail it back to the company. How things have changed. The digital library videos is something that they flirted with. Now that's their entire business model on top of making their own shows. So that's a really good one. And then Pixar, same thing. Used to be a Steve Jobs company back when he was also running Apple. what Disney's been able to do after
Right.
buying Pixar and putting out movies in record time, that's really amazing too. Anybody else want to piggyback on what
Right.
companies out there are really doing big things? Sterling, Mr. Young?
Well, the telecommunication companies and video communication companies got thrust into the forefront with this the situation with the pandemic, and so um, it used to be that WebEx from Cisco was the de facto standard for video conferencing. And the fact that it was big and glitchy and it took some knowledge to use wasn't a big deal because only businesses who could afford the time and money was utilizing that type of technology. Everyone thought it was a niche technology that, sure, some people use it, but we don't have to worry about it for the entire company. Um, in the last few years, companies like Zoom, Blue Jeans, and even Microsoft with Teams have started making that technology ubiquitous or making it useful for the average user to use from desk to desk, not just from computer from city to city, but within your own company. And this is where innovation meets opportunity, or preparedness meets opportunity, where these guys were building something that the layperson could use, and then wham, we're all working from home and you have no choice but to use those platforms. And that's how Zoom was able to leapfrog all these major companies, is because their interface was so useful and easy for the layperson to use, that became the de facto choice. And so now their stock and their value has increased, I think, about 400% in the last few months. Just remember, in January, we were all working from an office. we March, we were considering how we would work from an office and maybe from home. Now in December, people are reevaluating, why do we need an office? Why do we need to go back when all these tools and technologies work for us right now? And so those are the companies that are obviously making making a lot of noise right now.
Yeah, I would say that, first of all, appreciate Brother Sterling, and shout out to Blue Jeans Verizon acquisition recently. We're trying to make our way in that fight, but to your question, Brother Cole, the those of you guys remember for the leap from 3G to 4G. There's a lot of things that happened around that time frame. The iPhone came out, smartphones became more prevalent, around the 4G. And Brother Sharp remembers this being from the Sprint days. But that leap really enabled a lot of the disruption that has happened once you put things in your phone, right? So people talk about 5G, and really, to me, where 5G is, it's a highway that really needs cars on it, right? So we have done tests in most of the NFL stadiums where you're getting 2 gig to your phone in stadiums and in major cities, right? So that's bandwidth like that we've never really seen. But you need applications to really change that and run on that amount of bandwidth. And so right now, 5G is at a place where, yes, we're running out, to your question, we're rolling out 5G, but the disruptors to Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and Apple, really, to me, are going to, and they're already on this, right? Because we partner with Netflix is a customer of ours. I can tell you stories about, sitting in meetings with them around what they do around data analytics, that they know what type of movie they make movies based on their data analytics that they get back from each of us. So they're so far ahead from a data analytics perspective around why you watched what you watch, and taking all of that out and then saying, okay, I need to put Dave Chappelle in basically everything, because every time he puts something out, the numbers are there. But I think that where we're at from a technology perspective of who's going to disrupt those players is going to be who's going to be able to leverage the significant amount of bandwidth that is available via 5G? And what are the new applications? Or will it just be Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and Apple basically just continue their dominance and they're not disrupted? They're going to try to not be disruptive, but there's so many opportunities out there to figure out what application can run on. So we're doing a lot of things in partnering with virtual reality, augmented reality. I personally don't, not a huge fan of, I don't want to say a huge fan, but I haven't really gotten what those experiences are. But the way that you watch a football game, the way you experience a concert, the way that you may have a surgery, the way telemedicine happens, when you have that much bandwidth, it's going to be a different experience in the future because you have so much bandwidth. So, those are the applications that are leaning into it. Microsoft, they are heavy into artificial intelligence, data analytics, all of those companies across the board. So it's going to be an exciting time.
Hey, well said, well said. So, all right, I do have a last question for you guys, and this one can be really quick. In addition to our students pursuing their collegiate studies, the classes that they're going to take in college and even now in high school, what certifications on the side, not just technology, but Mr. Sterling talked a little bit about people, process. What are those certifications that are really respected these days that, carry a lot of weight after you graduate college when you're looking for your first or your second job in a STEM-related career? Mr. Sterling, I believe you're on mute.
One of the top certifications is ITIL, and what is now referred to as ITSM. And basically, it talks about how you structure an organization and information organization, and how you structure services around that. And it's IT service management is what ITSM stands for. Certification in that, and it really doesn't take you much to get the certification. But once you get that first level of certification for ITSM, people start understanding what you're talking about. It adds more weight to your time in college. It adds more weight to the advice that you're giving your organization, and people understand that you've put some time into to studying what makes a good organization and what pushes that organization forward. Another one that is Six Sigma, which is it started with an old cellular company, Motorola, and then moved into manufacturing segments, and now moved into every organization. And all it's about is the proper process for building something. And so there are different levels. You can be a black belt, you can be a white belt, that way you just understand it. You can be a yellow belt, but if given the opportunity, and I would say this about almost any certification in college or high school, if given the opportunity to get a certification, get it. Don't turn down the opportunity to learn something. Have that under your belt, because it will build upon that as you go forward.
Awesome. I did post the links to ITSM as well as Six Sigma in the chat as well. If anyone in our audience does want to check those out. Anybody else in terms of certifications?
Once you're in, I mean, PMP is probably one of the ones that keeps you paid, employed. And even if you're just studying for it, one of the beauties in PMP is usually your company will pay for you to study for it as well as take the exam.
Absolutely. So
that one will keep you gainfully employed.
Yeah, I would just echo the sentiments by Brother Sharp and Brother Sterling. It was said earlier, if there's training out there, take advantage of it. If there's certifications out there that your company's paying for, you better get it. It's just like a 401k. If they're matching, you better take that free money. You take those certifications, you take all you can, because it makes you marketable, right? When you put those things there. So I wouldn't have, I kind of chased whatever was free within my career. So if it was available to go after that, I could get it and the company was paying for it, I took advantage of that. I would encourage. And then for high school and college kids, it's interesting because Nesbitt, the Black engineer, Nesby, they do things at the college level, so you can get some certifications through them as well. So, just do your research, see what's out there that's free, and then I don't know if I would pay for it. I was a little bit cheap in that way, but if you can get it paid for by somebody, or if there's free resources out there, make sure you take advantage of that. And if not, then I would just follow my passion and figure out what certifications that really fit into where I'm trying to go from a goal perspective.
Excellent. So I did post a link to Nesby as well as the PMP in the chat. I haven't heard anyone say CSM. I haven't heard anyone talk about Agile.
Yeah, Verizon, our development groups, we use Agile. Again, see, that's what I'm saying. But if you're part of like big companies, then allow that training. You get trained on Agile and you get trained on things of that nature. But there's Six Sigma, you can go down a list of things that there's training out there from the larger companies.
Okay, excellent. And then all of those links, like we had mentioned, are available in the chat. For those that are going to be watching this recorded, we'll do our best to make sure that this gets under the YouTube description video, so that you have those available that you can take a look at your own leisure as well.
Brother Cole, one thing I want to add though is that, because we live in the DC area, and I think we would be remiss if we didn't say this as well. The one thing that goes along with that, if you marry those certifications with security clearances, you're gonna keep a job in the DC area.
Yep.
So and for you guys, try and stay out of trouble while you're young. Make sure you do what you need to do. I know this is probably a good group of kids, but if you could get the security clearances to go along with those certifications that you mentioned, then there's a good chance that you're gonna stay employed.
Awesome. Yep. Mr. Young, Mr. Sharp, Mr. Sterling, we really do appreciate the three of you's time coming through and speaking to our audience today on the value of having a STEM career, how to grow in it, your own experiences throughout your own career. And then just some words of encouragement, some words of wisdom for our students that if they want to pursue a career in science, technology, engineering, and math, what are the things that they need to do? What are the things that they need to look at? What are the skills that they need to accumulate now? So we really do appreciate all three of your time. I'll go ahead and give it over to Mr. Sprouls in order to sign us all off. And then we can get on with our day. Really do appreciate everybody.
All right. Thanks so much.
Hey folks, this is Fontaine Sprouls, the Kappa League chair for the Dulles-Leesburg alumni chapter, and Mr. Sterling, Mr. Young, and Mr. Sharp. After last month's amazing webinar on communications, I wasn't sure how panelists could top the perspectives shared in October, but outstanding job, and we appreciate your contributions to today's topic. As has been noted by the three panelists, STEM is extremely important, and statistics show great disparity for people of color in careers of STEM. And in response to that, Kappa Alpha Psi entered into a partnership last year with an organization that Mr. Young mentioned, the National Society of Black Engineers, to increase exposure to these fields. And as part of this webinar, we are committed here in the Dulles-Leesburg Guide Right program, and this is one of the reasons why this topic was selected. Just as a recap, we heard wonderful perspectives from Mr. Sterling on the importance, him clarifying the important misconception of his role, not solely being focused on working on computers, but that computers work for him. And being truly focused on working with people and helping them achieve their technology goals. We heard from Mr. Young on re-emphasizing the importance of just the willingness to learn new technology and how he's gone far in his career with a couple of great examples in just being willing to try new things. We heard from Mr. Sharp on not letting people deter him from what he knew his area of gifting in was, and that was just being a creative. I love that, Mr. Sharp, especially for the young men who may have folks that are naysayers to them. So we heard from all three of the panelists on wonderful perspectives on how STEM has impacted them in their journeys in STEM. So we appreciate your attendance and participation in our webinar today. Mr. Cole, thank you for moderating yet another wonderful session, and the recording will be available on our Kappa League YouTube channel, in addition to other venues through our Dulles-Leesburg Guide Right program. So once again, thank you so much to our panelists, and thank you to those who have participated live today, but also those of you that will listen later on. Thanks a bunch, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.